Hello everyone. Let's try to understand the problem signal from Codechef starters 212. The problem statement is very simple. We'll be given a binary string s of length n, which represents a signal, right? So this will consist of zeros and ones, where zero represents a silence period and one represents a pulse period. Given this string, our task is to determine how many pulses occurred after at least one silence had appeared. Okay, so to put it in simple words, we just have to count the number of ones after at least one zero appeared, right? So let's try to take an input and let's try to understand what the output would be. So if the given string s is 1 1 0 1 1 0 1 1, right? Let's assume this is the string given to us. What is the first, where did the first zero appear? The first zero appeared at this index, right? So the answer for this test case would be just the number of ones after this zero, right? The count of the number of ones after this zero is 4. So the output for this test case would be 4. Okay. So how do we code this problem? What would be the approach? If we have the index of the first zero, if we know where the first zero appears, we just have to count the number of ones after that index, right? So it is pretty simple. In one iteration, you can try to find out the index, the first index of zero, and then run a loop from the next index and just count the number of ones. Okay, so this can be one possible solution. The other one is to maintain a Boolean variable where we'll store the information if we found a zero or not. Okay, so let's try to understand that approach. Let's take a Boolean flag. Let's name it found. Let's say initially found is false. Okay. So we use this variable to understand whether we found a zero or not. Okay. So initially at this index, we did not find a zero yet. So our found will remain false and we'll go to the next index. We did not find a zero yet. So found will still be false. And at this index, this is the first time we find a zero, right? So we'll change found to true. It means that from this index, we can start counting the ones. Okay, so we'll go to the next index. The value at the next index is 1, and the found variable is also true, which means that we found a 0 before this index, right? So we'll take a counter and we'll just increment it to 1. Okay, we'll go to the next index. This is also a 1, and found is true, so we'll change count to 2. We'll go to the next index. The value at this index is 0, so we'll not do anything, we'll not increment the count. We'll go to the next index. We'll check what is the value of our Boolean variable. It is true, which means that we already found a 0 somewhere before this. So we'll change the count to 3 and so on. Okay, so finally we'll come to this one. Found is true, which means that we found a 0 somewhere. So we'll increment this again. So after the entire iteration, the count will be 4, which will be your answer. Thank you.